Most people think aging is written into your DNA the day you're born. It's not. There's a hidden ecosystem living inside you right now, trillions of organisms, and new research says it might be one of the biggest levers we have for how fast or how slowly you age. Scientists studied people who made it past 100 years old, not just 100, some of them past 110, supercentenarians. And when they looked inside their gut, they found something almost nobody expected. A small handful of bacteria showing up again and again at levels far higher than in anyone else on Earth. These bacteria don't just sit there quietly. They talk to your immune system. They calm inflammation. They regulate your blood sugar. And some researchers now believe they may even help protect your brain. And here's the part that should change how you eat starting today. You can feed these bacteria on purpose with food you probably already have in your kitchen. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which bacteria the science points to, exactly what to eat to help them thrive, and exactly what's quietly starving them without you realizing it. Stick around till the end, because the fifth food on this list is the one almost nobody talks about, and it might matter more than all the others combined. For decades, longevity research focused almost entirely on the usual suspects: cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, all important, all real. But a few years ago, researchers started asking a different question. What's actually biologically different about the people who make it to 100 and stay sharp, mobile, and disease-free while doing it? So a team of scientists in Italy did something nobody had really done before. They looked at the gut microbiome, the community of trillions of bacteria living in the digestive tract across the entire span of human adulthood. People in their 20s, their 40s, their 70s, their 90s, and then specifically centenarians and supercentenarians, people who had crossed the 100-year mark and kept going. Using computational biology, they asked a simple but powerful question. As people age, does anything in their gut bacteria change in a predictable direction? And if so, does that pattern get even stronger in the people who live the longest? What they found was striking. A small cluster of bacterial species showed up disproportionately in the oldest, healthiest participants, bacteria that were comparatively rare in younger and middle-aged groups. Not just present a little more. Standouts. Statistically obvious. One name comes up again and again in this research, and if you've paid any attention to gut health content over the past 2 years, you've probably heard it: Akkermansia mucinifera. Akkermansia lives in the mucus lining of your gut, right at the border between your body and the outside world, in a sense, because that's exactly what your gut lining is. It's been linked in research to a stronger, better regulated immune response, lower markers of chronic, low-grade inflammation, better blood sugar regulation, and insulin sensitivity. A healthier gut lining itself, which affects what gets allowed into your bloodstream and what gets kept out. Here's the part that sounds like science fiction but isn't. Akkermansia doesn't even need to be alive to have a beneficial effect. Researchers have found that fragments of its outer membrane, essentially pieces of the bacteria left over after it's broken down, still trigger positive effects in the body, including on gut hormone signaling related to appetite and blood sugar regulation. Think about that for a second. Even the wreckage of this bacteria is still doing something useful for you. It's like finding out a demolished building is still somehow generating electricity. And Akkermansia isn't traveling alone. Alongside it, researchers have flagged other bacterial species that tend to rise in the healthiest older populations, species associated with lowering inflammation and helping to keep harmful bacteria, like certain strains of E. coli, in check. Some appear linked to healthier cholesterol patterns. Others seem connected to better circulation. Put it together, and you start to see why centenarians so often avoid the diseases that take most people out decades earlier. It's not just luck, and it's not just genetics. Part of it is ecosystem. Here's something that surprises most people. When people reach very old age, they usually don't die suddenly of a massive heart attack the way movies make it look. More often, it's infection, pneumonia, sepsis, something the immune system simply couldn't fight off in time. Or it's the slow compounding damage of chronic inflammation, something researchers have started calling inflammaging, inflammation that quietly accelerates aging itself. If a bacteria in your gut can help your immune system respond better to infection, lower your baseline inflammation, and support healthy metabolism all at the same time, that's not a minor wellness trend. That's a potential lever on the actual mechanisms of aging. And it doesn't stop at the gut. Here's something most people, even most doctors, were never taught. For generations, medical training held that the brain was a completely sterile environment. No bacteria allowed, ever. If you found bacteria near the brain or spinal fluid, that meant infection, meningitis, an emergency. But newer research has identified bacterial genetic material in brain tissue, suggesting a gut-brain microbial connection scientists are only beginning to map. Some estimates suggest the diversity of bacteria found associated with brain tissue is a meaningful fraction, roughly a fifth, of what's found in the gut. This has opened up a question that would have sounded absurd a decade ago. Could future treatments for neurodegenerative conditions involve probiotics? Some early research into specific probiotic strains has shown promising effects on neurological symptoms in preliminary studies, though this is still an evolving, early-stage area of science, not something to treat as settled fact. Let's talk about the statistic that tends to make people uncomfortable. Roughly 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women will develop cancer at some point in their lifetime. That's a sobering number. But here's the part that gets left out of that statistic. A large share of cancers are influenced by preventable factors: diet, inflammation, immune function, circulation. Inflammation in particular has been described by researchers as something like gasoline on a fire. A small early cluster of abnormal cells might sit dormant for years. Add chronic inflammation on top, and you're pouring fuel on embers that might otherwise never have caught. This is part of why an anti-inflammatory gut environment isn't just about digestion, it's tied into your body's broader defense systems against disease, including cancer. The same logic applies to cardiovascular health. Your body has roughly 60,000 miles of blood vessels, enough laid end to end to circle the earth more than twice. Every one of your organs depends on that network being clear and functional. A gut environment that supports healthy cholesterol, lower inflammation, and better metabolic regulation is indirectly supporting the health of that entire circulatory highway system. None of this means gut bacteria are a cure, but it does mean your gut ecosystem is quietly involved in far more of your long-term health than most people ever consider. This is the question that matters most. You can't buy Akkermansia off a shelf and expect a miracle overnight, but you can eat in a way that helps your body cultivate the conditions these bacteria prefer. 1. Polyphenol-rich foods. Akkermansia appears to thrive on polyphenols, plant compounds found in pomegranates, cranberries, blueberries, green tea, and dark grapes. Multiple studies have linked higher polyphenol intake to increased Akkermansia abundance. A daily habit as simple as green tea plus a handful of berries can meaningfully shift what you're feeding. 2. Fiber, but specifically diverse fiber. Not just any fiber. Different bacterial species prefer different types of fiber, almost like different pets having different favorite foods. Vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and seeds each feed a different corner of your internal ecosystem. The single biggest predictor of a healthy, diverse microbiome in large population studies isn't any one superfood. It's the number of different plant foods someone eats in a week. 3. Fermented foods. Yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, miso. These introduce live cultures and beneficial byproducts that support a healthier overall gut environment, creating conditions where beneficial species can outcompete harmful ones for space and resources. 4. Cutting back on ultra-processed food. This is the harder truth, and it's worth saying without judgment. Diets high in added sugar and heavily processed ingredients have been associated with lower Akkermansia levels and reduced microbial diversity overall. Most of us grew up eating this way. It was cheap, shelf-stable, and marketed brilliantly to kids standing at the checkout counter. That's not a personal failure. It's the food environment we inherited. But now we know more, and that knowledge comes with a choice we get to make starting with today's meals. 5. The one almost nobody talks about, meal timing and gut rest. Some emerging research suggests that giving your digestive system defined periods of rest between meals, rather than constant grazing throughout the day, may support the conditions certain beneficial bacteria, including Akkermansia, seem to prefer. This is still a developing area of research, not a rigid prescription, but it's worth paying attention to as the science matures. To make this practical, think about breakfast built around plain yogurt or caffeine topped with berries and a drizzle of honey. Lunch built around a big varied salad, 3 or 4 different vegetables, a legume like chickpeas or lentils, olive oil, an afternoon habit of green tea instead of a sugary drink, dinner with a fermented side like kimchi or sauerkraut alongside whole grains and vegetables. None of this requires a supplement aisle or an expensive protocol. It requires variety, plants, and less of the ultra-processed food that quietly works against everything we just talked about. None of this is about chasing a number on a birthday cake. Longevity researchers increasingly talk about health span rather than lifespan. Not just how long you live, but how well you live while you're doing it. Quality of life, the ability to keep moving, keep thinking clearly, keep doing the things that actually make life worth extending in the first place. What the centenarian research really shows is this: the body is not simply falling apart on a fixed, unchangeable timeline. It's responding in real time to the environment you give it, including the trillions of organisms you're feeding or quietly starving every single day, one meal at a time. You're not just eating for yourself. In a very real sense, you're eating for an entire internal ecosystem that may be quietly deciding how well and how long you age. The science connecting gut bacteria to longevity is still young, and there's a lot researchers don't fully understand yet. But the direction of the evidence is hard to ignore. The healthiest, longest living people on Earth share something in their gut that most of us don't, and food is one of the few tools we actually have to move in that direction, starting with tonight's dinner. If you want to understand the other half of this story, how your immune system decides which of these bacteria get to thrive in the first place, check out the next video, because that piece might be even bigger than this one.